Okay, good afternoon. So I'm Dan Wilson. I'm at the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank. And in addition to being in the research department, I'm the assistant director of CSIP, which is the Center for the Study of Innovation and Productivity. And so the topic of my talk is technology innovations powering or pummeling the economy. So before I get into my own views on that, or what I think economic research has to say about that question, let me talk a little bit about why that's an important subject for the Federal Reserve, and in particular the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. So I think Eric and Bart touched on this before, that technology change, innovations, is the key driver of long-run productivity growth, which in turn is the key driver of long-run increases in living standards. So clearly, this is why economists care about innovation and technology. Productivity growth matters particularly to the Fed because of our dual mandate, right? So our dual mandate is to encourage or sustain maximum employment and to keep prices and inflation stable. So productivity growth is what allows us to maximize the economy's so-called speed limit, which is how fast the economy can grow without triggering inflation. So if you think about what productivity is, in a sense, it's output per unit of input. And so when that's growing fast, the cost per unit of output is growing slowly, and that's prices. So that's how inflation stays low when you have productivity growth. So this topic is particularly important to the San Francisco Fed because of where we are geographically located, and also because of the interests and expertise of our research staff. So we founded CSIP as a way, in 2002, as a way of promoting research on the topics of innovation and productivity. So as I said, we're uniquely situated geographically and intellectually to study these topics. For one thing, we have Silicon Valley just down the road. Of course, we also represent the Western United States within the Federal Reserve System, and the Western United States has lots of IT centers, including here in Seattle, Boise, Idaho, and several other places. And we had, in 2002, and continue to have more of, skills and interests in our research department in this area of study. So our mission really is to promote the better understanding of innovation and productivity, and there are links to the performance of national and regional economies and behavior of firms and labor markets. The way we do this is promoting research, both by hosting conferences, encouraging our own research staff to work in these areas, and to host visiting scholars. We have outside experts come. In fact, Bart and Eric have both been to the San Francisco Fed for conferences that we've hosted. So now, turning to the topic at hand, what I'd like to just go through is what economic research, both done in-house at CSIP and with CSIP researchers and elsewhere, and talk about what economic research has to say about kind of the positives and negatives of technological change in the long run and in the short run. So I'm going to frame the talk around three aspects: the good, the bad, and the ugly of technological change. The good being, I think you probably already know a lot of the good. We talked about it today. The bad has to do with short-run disruptions and even some long-run consequences of productivity growth and technology. And then the ugly really has to do with kind of the mixed or hard to characterize economic effects of technological change, like the fact that there are winners and losers, winning industries, losing industries, winning workers and losing workers. So in terms of the good, we already kind of talked about this a little today, but just to drive home the point, technological change is, as I said before, the key driver of long-run productivity growth. And long-run productivity growth has amazing effects on living standards over the long haul. So if you consider the fact that from 1949 to now, productivity growth, labor productivity growth, has averaged about 2.5%, which implies a doubling in output every 25 years. So basically, every generation, output per worker has doubled. And consider some of the what's happened in some industries. So agriculture is a great example of the power of productivity growth. 100 years ago, it took over 30 labor hours to produce 100 bushels of corn. Today, that takes 3 hours. Okay? Income per capita in the US was $7,000 in 1949. Today, it's over $30,000, so a fourfold increase. Okay? So that's all from productivity growth. And it not only has these long-run beneficial effects, but it's actually, in the current recession, as we touched on earlier, has been powering the economy when we've lost a lot of the inputs into the production process. Productivity has sort of been powering this economy through the recession. So first, consider how much the economy has underutilized the labor and capital we have access to over the last couple of years. So first, in terms of employment, I'm sure you already kind of know this, but the numbers are incredibly stark. The economy shed over 8 million jobs in the last 2 years, which is 6% from the peak of employment in December 2007. Okay? So the economy has, our production process, the production of GDP in this country has given up 6% of labor input. Similar things have happened on capital, on the capital side. So capital being equipment, software, buildings. This is just one indicator of how much the economy has shed in terms of capital usage. So this is the manufacturing capacity utilization rate, basically the rate at which manufacturers use their capital. This thing fell to unprecedented levels during this past recession. The data go back to the early 1970s or late 1960s. And so the utilization rate in manufacturing fell to 65% at the worst point of the recession. It's climbed back up some, but as you can see, it's still extremely low relative to the long-run average. In fact, it's still, it's just a little bit above the worst point of the 1981-82 recession. So the economy, obviously, has taken an enormous hit. But with all of that loss of capital and labor, somehow GDP didn't fall by the same magnitude as capital and labor. And of course, the difference is productivity growth. So somehow or another, the economy has been able to continue to produce goods and services, continue to, so goods and the production of GDP growth did slow in the economy. In fact, GDP growth was negative for a while. But it would have been far, far more negative if GDP, if the typical historical average patterns of productivity occurred in this recession as in past recessions, given this drop we had in labor and capital. Okay, so this is what productivity, labor productivity has done, looking at output per hour of work from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So the blue line is just the actual year-over-year quarterly data. And these red lines give averages for particular subperiods.